Niekamp, call the roll. Trustee Dunlap.
Present.
Trustee Wild.
Present.
Trustee Mullenhall.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Stand and join me, if you're able, for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for those that protect us at both home and abroad. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I have been presented with regular trustee meeting minutes from October 6, 2021. Pleasure of the board.
Move to accept as submitted by the physical office without public reading.
Second.
Ms. Niekamp, call the roll.
Mr. Dunlap.
Yes.
Mrs. Wild.
Yes.
Mr. Mullenhall.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Trevina.
Trying to make it work since Melissa doesn't have a voice.
We thought she was a ventriloquist there for a while.
County authorities, we have a deputy here from the Fairfield County Sheriff's Department. Would you like to make comment? Okay, thank you.
That's Sergeant Burke.
Oh, sorry, Sergeant Burke.
And Sergeant Burke is going to be assigned to the Violet Township substation. And then in January, there'll be some additional changes with manpower. So we'll have additional deputies plus a sergeant assigned to our township.
Welcome. We also have with us from the prosecutor's office, Josh Horsek, our law director. Welcome. Reached the portion of our meeting for public comment. If you would like to address the trustees, come to the podium, state your name, address, and group affiliation. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. Do I have anyone that would like to participate?
My name is Kathy Jerbick. I reside at 12599 Tollgate Road. I want to address 2 issues tonight. I submit this as my written testimony for the public record. I also want to ensure my previous written testimony of October 6th and the submitted proposed zoning regulation to delete Section 3V are part of the public record. First, I wish to address Mr. Dunlap for a response. What is the status of the resolution prepared by Violet Residents for Responsible Development and submitted to you at the last meeting on October 6th? Have you had the opportunity to discuss it with the county prosecutor? And what is the substance of those discussions?
If I may, this is not a back and forth. You can speak with Mr. Drabina, and he can let the trustees know what you're looking for. We made you aware of this last time.
Second issue, the administrator's report tonight. The first item is the ODOT stimulus program and submitting a grant proposal to pave Allen Road, a township road from Highway 33 to Stamen Road. ODOT is currently proposing to close Allen Road to traffic at Highway 33. So why are we seeking this grant? Trustees have heard that residents want more transparency and better communication from their local government. And I believe there is a commitment by the township to do so. And this is all to the good. So in the interest of same, and to avoid the appearance of piecemeal progress towards an unstated objective, let me state something about the appearance of this grant proposal. This proposed paving ends at Stamen Road. Immediately to the north is the Ricketts property and the site of his proposed Market Street development. This development has not yet come before the township for rezoning. One might surmise that this paving project benefits Ricketts the most. If this is indeed the intent, then let us be clear about it, own it, and be upfront with your constituents. If this is not the case, then I urge that updates to the zoning code, the final comprehensive plan, and future major changes to the township are clearly available and communicated through improved methods to residents for their involvement and input. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Have anyone else that would like to address the trustees?
Good evening. I'm Kathy Jensen, 10010 Oxford Drive. I'd like to talk about CETA tonight, and hopefully you can respond back, so this is more of a dialogue than a one-way monologue, and especially since I've posed questions that remain unanswered. Residents have the right to learn about proposed plans in the community so that they can make their views on development known before it happens rather than after it happens. In an attempt to provide more transparency in government, Violet Township should improve communications and ideally engagement of residents for the benefit of both parties. I've been trying to learn about the CETA agreement because what happens in that area very much affects Violet Township residents. So a few weeks ago, I posed questions to the township staff, but they still remain unanswered. I've reviewed the CETA agreements and see that the documents have specific meeting and reporting requirements. The CETA agreement requirements indicate that an annual financial report be done. I was unable to get an annual financial report requesting one. I received a response that the fund balance available for use this year is $393,795, for which we have budgeted only $50,000 in possible expenditures. However, none of the funds have been spent yet. The question still remains, how can one get a complete financial report? And if we don't have an annual financial report, why not when it is required by the CETA agreement? The CETA agreement requires joint meetings twice a year in March and October. I wanted to know who attends these biannual meetings and what the date is for the October meeting, so I could attend it and learn more about CETA. I also asked, how may I get the minutes of the past meetings? Much to my surprise, I learned that there are no such meetings held. Later, I was told there was a CETA meeting in December of 2020, but it was a discussion about one item, the roads in CETA area, and no minutes were taken. In an attempt to provide our residents more transparency, I'd like to better understand the process involved when Canal Winchester annexes Violet Township acreage in the CETA area. The following questions in my previous email have not been addressed. And now we have a real situation here since Canal Winchester City Council voted Monday night to annex the 50+ acres behind Kingy's, excuse me, with the plans to build 2 large warehouses there, creating low-paying jobs per square foot in an industry that will be further automated in the future, increasing air pollution from the traffic of 200 semi-trucks per day, decreasing nearby Violet Township housing values, and creating traffic congestion for all Violet Township residents who use Highway 33 to go to Columbus and Lancaster, our county seat. And of all things, the proposed plans include a roundabout by the warehouses. Can you imagine driving on a roundabout next to a semi-truck? I shudder at the thought of it. When there are such proposed plans, is it done with or without public hearings for Violet Townships? These are my questions posed a few weeks ago that remain unanswered. How are those public hearings communicated to residents? Can you confirm they are communicated to those residents with property immediately surrounding the potential annexation? But what about other Violet Township residents? Since we're all impacted by the annexation, zoning, and development of those properties. Once the annexation is completed, the CETA agreement requires that a notice is filed with the Violet Township financial officer. How is that info communicated to the citizens? Is it posted on the Violet Township website? And if not, why not? Taxpayers are on the hook. We taxpayers are on the hook to fund the expense of road maintenance in the CETA area after a property is annexed by Canal Winchester. While Violet Township receives about 20% of the employee income tax, that may be fine for the wear and tear for roads on an office or a retail space. But the roads will crumble quickly under the wear and tear of 200 semi-trucks per day. Additionally, it is expected that the warehouse industry will become more automated in the future, thereby reducing the amount of future income tax benefit. We often hear residents complain about learning info after the fact rather than before. I'd like to find a better way to communicate these changes before completion, keeping residents better informed. And now we have a real life situation. On Monday, Canal Winchester voted to annex this property with plans to build 2 huge warehouses, where there are also plans for 4 other large warehouses in the same general area. There will be a November 15th zoning meeting to change the zoning for the construction of these 2 warehouses. Violet residents have a right to know about this upcoming hearing so they can voice any concerns. How does Violet Township plan to communicate the annexation in the upcoming November 15th hearing to our residents? And why didn't Violet Township communicate any of the past 3 annexation hearings on this Violet Township property? And I'd like to submit this for the record in writing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can you respond?
Mr. Jabina, has she contacted you for a
She
response?
did send an email, and I did respond to the ones I could answer.
Some of the questions, correct.
And I
Can we
But-
find, can we find the rest?
As
of
I
these?
said, these questions are still unanswered.
And I also know the fiscal officer answered some questions.
Are
Well,
we in the process of obtaining that information?
We will be if we haven't already got it. And I think our development manager was also trying to answer some.
What's a reasonable amount of time for her to wait for the information, do you think?
You mean to finish it up?
Correct.
Week from Friday.
That's-
okay, here's the bigger issue. As I say, we have
Ma'am,
a,
you're limited to 3 minutes. I've extended you
okay, here's
more
a
than
question
3,
that's
and-
unanswered, if I could get a
Sure.
response.
Well.
We have a zoning meeting on November 15th that I think it's very important residents learn about. And so how are you going to communicate that? You've not communicated any of the past 3 public hearings on the annexation, and this is the final meeting on November 15th. I feel that there's a responsibility to communicate with the residents.
My understanding is that's a Canal Winchester meeting. And also, am I correct?
I believe so, yes.
And also, is there someone that is part of the CETA that could contact her back and explain the process a little bit
Oh.
better to her?
So we plan to do nothing to let Violet residents know about it in advance.
Ma'am, I'm trying to help you get the information that you want because quite frankly, I don't want to misspeak. And I want you to have the information that you want. And I mentioned last time that you were in, that if you would
And I
communicate.
did go through Mr. Durbino.
Thank you,
Oh, we don't have to be this way. We really don't.
I will try to get
thank you.
the answers. And
So we don't plan to communicate the November 15th meeting to our residents. We'll just let them be surprised after the fact. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the trustees? Where are we at time on this? Thank you. 15 minutes. Moving right along, program areas, Mike Little, Fire Chief.
Thank you and good evening. I don't have any resolutions tonight, so I'll give you all of the updates we have. Since we didn't have our meeting, the second meeting in October, I have September stats for you, and I'll have obviously October stats for you at the next meeting. But for September, the run volume was 12% ahead of last year. It was 7.6% ahead of 2019. And if you recall, we're making those comparisons to 2019 because we know our run volumes were markedly down in 2020. EMS transports were 18% ahead of last year, but 5.2% ahead of 2019. And EMS receipts were 6.5% of last year ahead and 1.1% ahead of 2019. So no matter how you look at it, we're obviously our volumes and everything are continue to go up and our revenues are going up. So we're doing well. This past Monday, just FYI, we had an insurance renewal meeting. Just as a reminder, we're only renewing our medical as our dental and our VSP were, I believe, 2 or 3 year agreements that we made last year. So The only renewal that'll take place this year is for medical. The lieutenant testing and assessment process is underway, and that'll conclude on December 10th, and that will create a new list for 3 years for the potential for promotions for firefighters to lieutenant. And lastly, Chief Paxton and I have participated in 2 days worth of negotiation proceedings. We have reached a tentative agreement in 2 days with the local. My plan is to schedule meetings with each of the trustees within the next week or so before the next meeting, because our intent would be to have a resolution to approve the CBA at the November 17th meeting. So I'll be contacting all 3 of you at some point here tomorrow or the next day to try to set up a time to get with each of you, with Chief Paxton and I, to go over the details of the tentative agreement. And that's all I have tonight.
Additional questions for the fire chief, Mrs. Wild,
I have none. Thank you.
Mr. Dunlap?
I have none. Thanks, Chief.
I have no questions, chief. Thank you for your report. Ed Urbina, Township Administrator.
Yes, good evening, everyone. In my report, like was mentioned previously, the ODOT stimulus program, I did meet with ODOT representatives and to talk about what road we should apply for, what would qualify the best. And their thought was a township road that went from one major road to another major road. And that's why Allen Road was picked, because it goes from 33 to Steeman. So that answers that. And there is a Fairfield County Regional Planning Commission Stormwater Advisory Education Committee meeting tomorrow down in Lancaster, so I will attend that. There was a state natural preserve dedication this week. I could not attend, but I believe a couple of the trustees did attend. So that's going to permanently protect that property while allowing education, science, and visitation. Vision for Violet, we have a meeting tomorrow night, 7 to 8:30. Grant writing services, Fairfield County is offering grant writing services for Fairfield townships and villages. Mr. Duffy did attend the informational meeting, and we will be scheduling a meeting with the Hicks partners to discuss grant writing opportunities for the township, to see what we qualify for, et cetera. And the dog park, I do have the trees replacement schedule for Friday. So those dead trees that we talked about earlier this year will be replaced Friday. The water fountain also has been ordered, and it's still on order, but we won't install that until spring. And just a reminder, I know I mentioned it a couple meetings ago, the December 1st meeting, we'll have to change the location of where we're going to have the meeting because of a conflict with the stage here. That's all I have right now. If anyone has any questions, and we do have a public hearing at 8 o'clock.
Additional questions for the Township Administrator, Mrs. Wild,
I have none. Thank you.
Mr. Dunlap?
We received some money towards improvements in the dog park. And we did some work. We fenced in another area and put in another access gate. And at one time, we were looking at putting a shelter out there.
Yes,
Is that still on the book, or we're hooked?
that's
Or-
being designed at this time.
Okay. That's the only thing I had. Thank you, Ed.
I have no additional questions. Mr. Trevina, thank you for your report.
Yes.
Elected officials, Vanessa Niekamp, Fiscal Officer.
Do you have anything?
I can try.
Get real close. Get real close.
I'll do it.
Fiscal Office has one resolution for tonight, Resolution 2021-110302, to approve purchase orders.
Pleasure of the board on O2.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Any questions? Mr. Trevina, call the roll.
Mr. Dunlap,
Yes.
Mrs. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. Monhollow.
Yes.
Passed. Anything else from me? That's it.
Additional questions for the fiscal officer? Mrs. Wild?
I have none. Thank you.
Mr. Dunlap?
I have none.
I have no additional questions. Thank you. Trustee reports, Mrs. Wild?
I have nothing to report.
Mr. Dunlap?
Well, as everyone is aware, our neighboring township to the north, Etna Township in Licking County, had a development issue, and the residents there were successful in their petition to put that on the ballot. And it was approved to repeal the zoning. So where that's going to go, we don't know. However, in the other zoning, the two accesses into New England Acres off of Old Post and Cape Cod, we had an agreement to put like a fire pass through there where fire trucks would get through and be a grass area like we have between Shavington and Ashley Creek. However, if that stands, then that agreement goes away. So we'll be looking at what we need to do with whatever comes to the future of there. I am aware that the landowner and another developer has filed paperwork with Etna Township, and I don't know their process. They have an overhead, whatever. They've already approved some other zonings in that area, and it's like an overlay. All they got to pull it down. And one of the things that was filed was for apartments. So like I said, that, not knowing how far that's along, other than it has been filed with Etna Township, how long that process goes, it'll probably be till after all the issues with the vote and whether it gets appealed or whether it goes to court or not. But we need to keep in mind that we have to be working with Jeremiah Up, our county engineer, and our county engineers on those two connections, because if they put them new roads in up there, which are wider than our 16-foot roads, those two roads I just mentioned are under 60-year-old standards, and they just won't match up. So we have to be concerned about our New England residents, and we have to keep that in mind. I'll keep you advised of what else I find out what's going on up through there. So I just wanted to share that with everybody tonight.
Well, first of all, thank you for staying on top of that. Even though we don't have a governmental say-so, it does affect those residents that abut that area. I was going to mention the grant writing as well, something that we talked about at regional planning. It was born out of the fact that a lot of townships and small towns, villages missed out on the first round of money because they couldn't effectively write the grants. So that was a nice thing for the county commissioners to be able to do. Events where there'll be more than one trustee present prior to our next meeting.
The County Township Association meeting, and I got to hear back from the Fair Board. He was supposed to call me back again today. It's either going to be the 13th or the 14th or the 20th. But that is before our next meeting. Not before, if it's the 20th, it's not, but the 13th or 14th, there might be more than two trustees present at the Fairfield County Township Association, which will meet at the fairgrounds. It'll either be in the Ricketts Hall, the Ed Sands Hall, or the AAA Hall. So,
Anything else?
not that I'm aware of.
We have no old business nor tabled items, correct? And we have nothing else on the agenda.
Well, I think we're close enough that we could go into the public hearing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recess the regular trustee meeting and go into the scheduled public hearing for the Chesapeake Family Final Plat Section 2 and 3.
Second.
You really should wait till 8 o'clock. Pardon me? You really should wait till 8 o'clock. Well, We'll wait till 8 o'clock again.
We are in a 5-minute recess. Thank you.
Kelly, in the future, let's schedule them hearings at 7:45. We won't have this issue.
Nice to meet you.
I didn't see. I think I will say something. Let me start back up. I missed Brandon. It's not my phone.
They put it in, they put their own water and sewer district into the annexation. Well, money they didn't pass. What township was that?
Sure.
It's not at.
This,
It disappeared because it's off. Right.
oh my gosh, there's little ants on this table. No, here, I'll just pass them to you. There was another one that I got off the table. They're just little ants.
Yeah, I mean, basically. Pretty simple. I hope so too. And you're more than welcome to call with any questions. Please don't. I'm here to answer questions. Thank you.
I already talked to her about it. It'll keep you from re-explaining it. It isn't. You can invite anybody you want into executive. So when I was first elected over at Pickering County, there was an issue, and then they just had to redo the entire meeting because they wouldn't, Chair Daly wouldn't let me in the meeting. So then we had to do the whole thing over again. There's no point. Just have her in. Yep.
As we're getting ready to begin here, I wanted to apologize to our Clerk of Courts, Brandon Meyer, who's here in attendance. Didn't see you there. Mr. Meyer, we are now out of the recess. Ms. Sarko.
The purpose of this public hearing is to consider the final plats for Chesapeake Sections 2 and 3 in accordance with the Violet Township zoning resolution. Chesapeake Plan District was approved in June 2017 and modified in 2019. The development plan originally called for 62 lots. Chesapeake Section 2 contains 19 lots and 1 reserve. Chesapeake Section 3 contains 19 lots and 2 reserves. 1 lot has been eliminated from the entire development due to configuration of the cul-de-sac. Fairfield County Regional Planning Commission voted to conditionally approve these plats on November 4th, 2020, subject to the conditions identified in the tech review report and subdivision regulations committee reports. The zoning these plats conform to the approved development plan for Chesapeake, and any comments or concerns that I have been addressed by CISO, the engineer, John Buchanan, with CISO.
Any questions for Mrs. Sarko at this time?
Has the pond drainage issue been resolved in the first section?
I spoke to, I left a message for James Mako. He returned my message. He and Jeremiah Up, both were at the county engineer's office, reviewed the certification submitted to Regional Planning Commission for the pond repair, and they are satisfied with that report.
So they're satisfied that the pond has been repaired?
That's my
It's not
understanding.
leaking down on Mr. Anderson?
They are satisfied with the repair.
Are there potential pond issues with the two in these next 2 sections?
No, there's not. I don't believe there's a pond in either one of these reserves. There is a creek that runs through the back of the cul-de-sac on the east side of the development.
Okay, well, I see 2 new retention ponds in blue there.
Oh, yes. I don't think that's an issue. It's adjacent to the estates at Lake Forest.
I know that soil went through there, has some questions, particularly on the south side of that. That's why I'm asking. And that connects to the Pickerington portion
No, it actually connects to us, the estates at Lake Forest.
or Lake Forest, okay?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's Bay Bridge Way is the street. No, Rapala Lane is the street that connects to estates at Lake Forest. As far as I know that the infrastructure has been installed, and I haven't heard any issues about any of those retention basins.
I didn't hear the last part of it. Your voice dropped off.
I have not heard any concerns about either one of those stormwater management areas.
Okay.
When you say you're satisfied or the engineer is satisfied with the repair of the pond, is the resident satisfied with the repair of the pond?
I am unsure of that. I only asked Mr. Mako if Regional Planning Commission and the County Engineer's Office were satisfied with the certification.
Well, I think we ought to check with Mr. Anderson and see if he's satisfied, because that affects his property. That's why we had that issue to try to get it resolved. So. do we go ahead with section 2 and 3 until we make sure that that's okay? Or do we
They-
table this to make sure that that's okay?
The subdivision hasn't been conditionally approved yet. Section 1 has not, the improvements. And so the streets won't be accepted until that time. Unless those they have a punch list items still of other items that need to be repaired.
Okay. So that's all I had.
So you're stating that they cannot continue on and sell these homes without an additional approval?
No, what I'm saying is in order to sell lots, they have to record these plats. These plats need to comply with all of the other agencies' requirements. They meet with my requirement, the zoning offices and the development plan requirements. However, the pond has been repaired and the county has received certification from an engineer that it has been repaired. But they do have some other items on a punch list that they need to address.
You have some what?
They have some other items on a punch list that needs to be addressed for section 1. These are for sections 2 and 3.
Is it fair to say that a considerable amount of time on our part and the part of others has been spent to assure that this pond is correctly repaired? And that originally the resident had stated that it was leaking and that we did find that it was leaking. They came in and did a repair. That's why I would like to know whether it's leaking still or not from a standpoint of what the resident has to say. So I find it a bit disappointing that with all of the engagement that we've had with the resident, that we didn't take the time to see if the resident was okay with the repair.
I understand your concern and I apologize for that.
And you said there was other issues with the first section that has to be addressed?
And that would be normal with any subdivision regarding a punch-out list. But if you'd like, you can continue this public hearing and I can obtain the answers and documentation for you.
I move we continue the public hearing until the pond issue and the other issues have been addressed.
Can, the attorney for Fisher Homes, Grand Communities is here, as well as Mr. Buchanan, Troy Cameron are here. They can answer these.
Okay, I'll
Details.
withdraw my motion for the moment.
Please approach.
Thank you, trustees. My name is Catherine Cunningham. I'm an attorney representing Fisher Homes and Grand Communities, and we are here really on the public hearing relating to the plat on section 2 and 3, and whether or not that meets the standards of your zoning code for approval of the plat. I'm going to talk about those first. I do want to address the other questions that you've been talking about. As it relates to plats 2 and 3, the standard in your zoning resolution is, are they in compliance with the final development plan and zoning? And I think that the zoning inspector and officer has said to you that they are. They do meet all of the standards in the development text and the development plan that has been approved by the trustees. On that section, there were 62 lots approved. They have 61 lots, one less than what was approved. They meet all the open space requirements and they're laid out exactly as the zoning anticipated. So under your code, as it relates to sections 2 and sections 3, it is the responsibility, the code says you shall approve the plats if they are in compliance with zoning. I do want to address the issues relating to section 1. Everything that you're talking about is relating to section 1 and whether or not the development standards that are primarily the county's standards relating to stormwater management, the pond, and other punch list items, road repair, final inspection approvals for public improvements in those sections, all of which have to meet county standards. That is a separate and distinct issue from the approvals of the next sections. And it is correct that because those are just about compliance with zoning, as it relates to the standards that you're talking about,
it is correct that Ms. Sarko is correct that the developer has to meet all of those improvement items and meet the county standards and get signed off by the county before they can move forward with the public improvements and that development. So they have been working on those items. The pond has been approved and certified by the county. There are a few minor punch list items that they are working on that have to be done before they can continue with that section. But all of those relate to section 1. As to sections 2 and 3, it has been through Regional Planning Commission. All of the conditional items have been accepted. They have final Mylars and plats that have been signed off by the county as meeting all of the county standards for the platting. And it also meets all of your zoning standards for the platting. So as it relates to sections 2 and 3, we're asking for an approval tonight because it meets all the standards. If there are issues associated with section 1, they can't move forward with that until all of those issues are resolved. And most of those issues are under the jurisdiction of the county, but we certainly have no objection to the property owner weighing in. But really the question is whether it meets the technical standards of the county in that. And Fisher Homes will continue to work in that direction to make sure that they're all met and they are in compliance. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And we have representatives from Fisher here today, and they can talk to you about any questions that you might have relating to either sections 2 or 3, which is sort of the paper platting of what's already been approved. Or if you have questions about section 1, I don't think they'd have any objection to addressing any concerns you might have.
My only question regarding section 1 is if the homeowner who has a lot of time invested in this and the others that have a lot of time invested in this are satisfied with the repair.
I understand what your question is. They're not here tonight to, as far as I know, to make any comments, and it's the developer's obligation to meet the county standards. So they've been working to do that. If there are other questions, but I can't address those normally. I mean, that would be a little bit unusual, but I don't know whether you can. Do you know?
Either one of you gentlemen able to answer that question?
Need you to come up to the microphone, state your name and address, please.
Troy Cameron, 8845 Smith Calhoun Road, Plain City, Ohio. As far as phase 1 basin goes, the county had a set of recommendations. We have followed those to completion, and they have given us conditional acceptance of that basin, both Jeremiah Up and James Mako. Further studies, further indications, there's no indication of any kind of seepage of the pond. Mr. Anderson's drive and the area to the south has been dry for several months, besides when it rains.
Okay.
Any additional question?
Other than to Kelly, they've met all the requirements for the final approval of the platting of section 2 and 3, correct?
They have addressed all the concerns and all of the requested text changes and comments that I've had. They've addressed all of those.
Okay.
Any questions?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have anyone that would like to make public comment?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Here we go.
My name is Kathy Jerbeck. I reside at 12599 Tollgate Road. I guess the question I would have for the township, if this affects Mr. Anderson's property, was Mr. Anderson aware of this public hearing and invited to come and attend and provide his comments on the situation? Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Sarko.
I would like to note that the public hearing was noticed in the newspaper and on our website in accordance with the township zoning resolution.
Thank you.
Be appropriate then to close the public hearing, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we close the public hearing on the plat approval for sections 2 and 3 of the Chesapeake subdivision.
Second?
Ms. Neecamp, call the roll.
Mr. Dunlap,
Yes.
Mrs. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. Monholland.
Yes. Sorry, Mr. Drabina.
That's fine.
Move to return to the regularly scheduled trustee meeting.
Second?
Mr. Drabina, call the roll.
Mr. Dunlap,
Yes.
Mrs. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. Monholland.
Yes.
Okay, we got-
Old business, table business.
We're past that.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I move that we take a 5-minute recess and then go into executive session for the High Revised Code 121.22G1 to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee, and to include the three trustees, Mr. Cabrera, fiscal officer, and Mr. Horshak,
And Mike Little.
and
And
Mike
Mr.
Little,
Mhm.
and trustee-elect Lori Saunders.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but before we do that, we do have a resolution to approve the final plats for Chesapeake, Section 2
Oh.
and 3.
Didn't see that. That's back on the first page.
Yes, it is.
So we have Resolution 2021-110301 to approve final plats for Chesapeake Sections 2 and 3.
Vote to adopt.
Second?
Any further discussion?
No, I got my questions answered. We're good.
Ms. Neecamp, call the roll.
Mr. Dunlap,
Yes?
Mrs. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. Monholland.
Yes.
Now, my motion, as I previously stated, after a 5-minute recess for the executive session.
Second?
Mr. Drabina, call the roll.
Mr. Dunlap,
Yes?
Mrs. Wild,
Yes.
Mr. Monholland.
Yes. We're in a 5-minute recess.